the Warriors did what the Warriors have almost always done, save for game 5, 6, and 7 back in the day against the Cleveland Cavaliers a few years ago. They won the game they had to win no matter what the circumstances were, which were allied against them. Kevon Looney out with an injury. Klay Thompson out with an injury. Kevin Durant still not playing due to an injury. And still, the Golden State Warriors found a way to go on the road and win against the Toronto Raptors and get a split now heading back to the Bay Area. This was, I think, the game which at the end of the season, at the end of the series, when the Raptors lose, which I think they are going to do, when they look back, they are going to look at Game 2 and say, we were so very close. We should have won that basketball game. It's one thing to lose because the Warriors just play out of their minds. It's another thing to miss shots that you would ordinarily make, to fall apart down the stretch, and to be unable to win at home. The performance at the beginning of the third quarter, which so often has been the time over the years where the Golden State Warriors erase deficits and take control of basketball games. Defensively, they came out and they stopped the Toronto Raptors stone cold at the beginning of that quarter, and I believe went on an 18-0 run, and as a result, found a way to win. I also think at the end of the game situation here, this is not complicated. When Draymond Green had the basketball, the Toronto Raptors had to foul. Draymond is an erratic free throw shooter at best. I think the odds were pretty good that he would make 1 out of 2. And you obviously don't want to foul Steph Curry in that situation, but it's a no-brainer, in my opinion, to foul Draymond Green. And instead, the clock got run down, and I still think Andre Iguodala taking the 3 is probably not the percentage play you want there. The time is more valuable than the points, and that's even with the ability to advance the ball to half court with a timeout. You definitely don't want to take that shot if you don't have any timeouts left, and you have to get the ball, rebound it, and go the length of the basket, length of the court with like 2 seconds left to try to win. But give Andre Iguodala credit, left wide open. He stepped up to the three-point line, drained a 3 to end a long scoring drought for the Golden State Warriors, and I think effectively win that series against the Toronto Raptors. Now, I know it's only Game 2, and I know there are doubtless a lot of you out there listening, because I was stunned by the huge percentage of the OutKick audience that can't stand the Golden State Warriors and so wanted the Toronto Raptors to get this thing done. But instead, it was just a beatdown, I thought, that will echo throughout the rest of this series. It's amazing how quickly things change in 7-game series. We have gone from, man, the Warriors really, really need to win Game 2, to now looking at back-to-back games taking place in Oracle, a place where the Golden State Warriors don't lose games that matter very often, and you're now really having to stare into the face of, I think there's a very good chance that we come back to Toronto with the Golden State Warriors up 3-1 in this series, trying to close it out in Game 5. We'll see whether or not the Raptors can get a win in Oakland. Obviously, that would change things again, put the onus back on Game 5, which if the two teams were tied up at 2-2 would be an incredibly important game, as we've talked about for years on this show. Game 5s, when two teams are tied up 2-2, the winner wins 84% of the time. Now, not always, because the Golden State Warriors went down 3-2 to Houston Rocket fans, the Houston Rockets last year, and still found a way to win Game 6 and Game 7. So it wouldn't decide everything, particularly with this Warriors team. But I think you look at the way things are setting up. There's a very good chance that Kevin Durant comes back in either Game 3 or Game 4. Klay Thompson says he is going to play in Game 3. He's got 3 days to get back and be ready to go. We'll see whether or not that's the case. It may somewhat determine whether or not Kevin Durant plays, which of the two guys is more healthy for Game 3. DeMarcus Cousins is rounding into his own and played really, really well in Game 2. Credit to him, first of all, for getting well enough to come back and play at all. Secondly, credit to Steve Kerr for playing him and taking a risk associated with him. And then third, what a performance by DeMarcus Cousins. I don't think there's any doubt that the Warriors don't win this game if DeMarcus Cousins isn't ready to go, particularly once the Kevon Looney injury happened. Andrew Bogut came in and played really well too. Again, this was a team effort. Steph Curry may well not have been healthy. It seems like this happens a lot where Steph Curry doesn't play, doesn't feel that well. But this was, in all respects, about as massive of a win as you can possibly imagine. And the Warriors have had a lot of them as they are now going for their 4th title in 5 years. I think we got a couple of audio cuts for you, but I want to dive into the box score and tell you a couple of other things out here. First of all, the Raptors attempted 38 threes, only hit 11 of them. They shot 37% from the floor. And again, the Warriors shooting 46%, nearly 40% from three. This was a game that Golden State went out and won, even with all the injuries, even with Steph Curry not playing that well in the grand scheme of things. This is why it's sometimes difficult to believe, by the way, in Pascal Siakam. The guy goes from unable to miss to disappearing. Marc Gasol comes back down to earth, doesn't have the kind of game that he should have. Kyle Lowry's been awful in this series. Let's just call a spade a spade. And getting his 6th foul in the way that he did, trying to reach in on DeMarcus Cousins from behind with about 2.5 minutes to go, was a really, really dumb play, the likes of which you couldn't defend in any way. Even Fred VanVleet finally came back down to earth, going 2 for 8 from threes. Raptors go back and watch this film and said, man, we missed a lot of open shots. The only team we really have to blame here is ourselves, and now we'll see what happens in Oakland. But a couple of clips that I want to play for you guys in the event you had gone to bed before this game was complete. Here's the play-by-play of Andre Iguodala's three-point shot from the Warriors radio network.
Curry spins, stumbles with a dribble, throws cross-court to Livingston. Good catch. Goes to Andre. He's open. Launches a three. Buried it! He buried it with 5.9 to go!
So, again, I think there was a little bit too much time left on the clock when Andre Iguodala took that three. Because if he misses it, they get the rebound. The Raptors have time to call a timeout. They can make a three to win the game in that scenario. I thought it was a really – I know some people disagreed with me because I tweeted out I wouldn't have made that call there. I thought calling the technical foul on Steph became a big play there because it kept the Warriors from being up 3 and in worst-case scenario going to overtime. No matter what happened, it also would have changed the strategy of the Toronto Raptors. But they should have fouled Draymond Green. The one thing I like a lot more about the NBA, well, there's several things I like a lot more about the NBA than college basketball. But number one is college basketball, they foul at the end of games so much. Doesn't matter. You can be down 9, you can be down 11. You're fouling for the final couple of minutes. It makes the games last forever. They don't foul very much in the NBA because of the shot clock situation. But the Raptors 100 billion% should have fouled Draymond Green down the stretch in that scenario. I don't think there's any difficulty at all. But the Raptors put themselves into a position to have a chance to at least be competitive in that game because the Warriors went cold when the Raptors started playing a box-and-one defense on Steph Curry because there was nobody else that really scared the Raptors on the floor with Klay Thompson out. Draymond Green can't make an outside jumper. There was a lot of disrespect being shown to Andre Iguodala in general. Cook came in and made some pretty good shots, but not a lot of fear, I think, from him. And DeMarcus Cousins, I think it's fair to say, even though he made at least 1 3, that the Raptors were fine with DeMarcus Cousins airing it up from outside and were okay with him taking the shot. Well, Steph Curry pointed out that Andre Iguodala felt a little bit disrespected with the defense that was being thrown at the Warriors down the stretch. Here he was after the game.
The whole fourth quarter they were playing some janky defense, just trying to send bodies to me everywhere. Our whole roster just took advantage of it. Like, over the course of the game, that's kind of disrespectful to leave Andre Iguodala open like that, with the game on the line. He's made big shots like that before.
So Steph Curry and the Warriors, stop me if you've heard this before, win a big game in the postseason. They are now substantial favorites to go on and win their 4th title in 5 years. Now, I know one of the great things about a long series, and maybe we're going to get a long series, potentially. We'll see what ends up happening here, is that there's lots of discussion after every game about the overall narrative of the series. To me, the storyline of this postseason in general, even though Steph didn't play a fantastic game, is Steph Curry is the best player in the NBA. I mean, I really do believe that he is the best player in the NBA. I think his performance and his position on the court changes more things than any other player. And we'll talk about this because we'll have a lot of time to fill after this series is over. But assuming the Warriors go on and win their 4th title in 5 years, I think there's a very big argument that everybody arguing at FS1 and ESPN and everybody else out there about LeBron versus Jordan has missed things. Because really, Steph is going to be the player of his generation that is much more remembered than LeBron James. And the reason for that is Steph Curry's changed the game. As good of a player as LeBron James is, he hasn't changed anything about the way basketball is played. Steph Curry has changed the way basketball is played. And if you coach or are involved in any kind of young kid basketball, you'll know exactly what I am talking about. Kids all want to be Steph. When I was growing up, everybody wanted to be Michael Jordan. Everybody wants to be Steph Curry now. Be like Mike. If you're my generation or you're older, you remember how much Michael Jordan was sold, the entire Air Jordan concept. If you shot basketball in your backyard, you put your tongue out, you tried the fadeaway. Everybody wanted to be Michael Jordan. So I saw a funny line in an interview with Adam Silver, and he said back in the day when the Bulls were on television, they joked that every year they would get the schedule for national television, and they said the dream of the television networks was the Bulls playing the Bulls. They wanted the Bulls playing anybody, and they would put it on national television, and we would all watch. Steph is the draw. Now, I do think that having Kevin Durant go join the Warriors took away a little bit from the lovability of Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. But what people want to be, the player that they aspire to grow up and become, is not LeBron James. It's Steph Curry. This is Steph Curry's generation of basketball fans that are growing up in this country right now. And certainly there are some negative sides associated with that. Because the result is there are kids out there throwing up long-range threes that have no business taking long-range threes. You should see my 8-year-old play basketball. The kid has no conscience. He comes running down the court. He'll throw it up from anywhere, and there are a lot of kids like him. But Steph Curry has expanded the mind of basketball players to believe things are more possible than they otherwise might have been. He has stretched the court. He has changed the way the game is played on a fundamental level. Steph Curry is his generation's Jordan, not LeBron James. I mean, and I think LeBron James is recognizing this, and I think it's going to come even more paramount, assuming Steph Curry wins this series. And if Kevin Durant stays, we'll talk about this when we come back. If Kevin Durant stays, we're setting up for a perfect situation where Durant gets to respond to all the critics. The Warriors winning Game 2. And now it's possible Klay Thompson's not going to be that healthy on Wednesday when they play Game 3 in this series. And guess what happens? That means that potentially Kevin Durant is going to have to ride back to the rescue if he comes out and wins Game 3 and Game 4 based on playing pretty well for the Warriors. Anybody criticizing Kevin Durant for just kind of riding on a championship caravan and not being a strong contributor to that championship won't have an argument at all. And so, as a result, I think, again, just a massive, monumental win for the Golden State Warriors. They've had a lot of them, including Game 6 against the Rockets last series or 2 series ago, and a massive win after Kevin Durant got hurt in the second half in Game 5. This is Steph Curry's team. This is Steph Curry's NBA. He has become the transcendent generational star that LeBron James hoped to be.